Well, I'd like to welcome everyone here today. This is kind of our official kickoff for the new master's degree in sports performance psychology. This has been in the works for actually a number of years, and we are very happy with the program that has evolved out of that, and we are very excited to have our first cohort of students coming in starting this January. So if we could move on to our next slide here. So the Masters of Science in Sports Performance Psychology, this is a little different than a lot of sports psychology programs in that it's based out of a applied psychophysiology department. So much more emphasis on the science behind things as opposed to simply performance things. So the tenets of mind-body medicine and sports psychology. We want to equip students with a strong foundation of psychology, optimal functioning, sports and performance physiology, performance enhancement. Graduates are prepared to fill a number of different occupations within these fields. Again, this was designed from the ground up. Our primary model for designing this program was to meet the standards of students who want to get the Certified Mental Performance Consultant from AASP, the American Society of Sports Psychology. That program has 8 different knowledge areas that they anticipate students will have before applying for that certification. And so the courses that we're offering here are designed specifically to meet those requirements, as well as to come from it as an approach from a more of a psychophysiological approach, mind-body approach to it. We want to educate and train functional, capable, ethical performance specialists in the field of athletic departments, coaching, exercise, and education. It begins with our core values and the mission statement. The core values is that the MS degree in sports performance psychology is embracing humanistic, professional, and professional values as demonstrated by all students and faculty. These qualities are directly linked to the mission and core values of the College of Integrative Medicine and Health Science and Saybrook University. The mission statement for this program was the Department of Applied Psychophysiology provides a highly quality graduate education programs to prepare wellness educators, optimal functioning trainers, sports psychologists to advance integrative, holistic, person-centered, and mindfully oriented approaches to peak performance, physical and emotional well-being, and resilience. So within the program as it develops, we put in program learning objectives, kind of looking at what all students can expect to experience, what they can expect to have by the end of this program. The first one is to be able to demonstrate the capacity to devise and implement psychological principles and mind-body techniques to enhance sports performance. They'll show competence in creating tailored interventions and training programs for individual athletes, teams, and sports-related organizations. The second PLO is to develop research skills. While this is primarily a practitioner-based, there is a research component to it expected from the AASP, to the ability to conduct, do research, and more importantly, I think to understand the research that's out there so that you can make sense of the material that's there and use it in your own designs for analyzing and synthesizing the data effectively. Third PO is ethics. Graduates will manifest an understanding and commitment to uphold ethical guidelines of sport and performance psychology. They will be competent in identifying and resolve ethical dilemmas, demonstrating a high level of integrity and professional conduct. The fourth, communication and consultation. Graduates will show strong communication and consultation skills. They will be effective in conveying complex psychological principles to diverse audiences, fostering effective collaboration with other professionals, and formulating comprehensive support plans for athletes. And the final one, graduates will be able to critically analyze, interpret, and apply core theories, concepts, and principles of sports performance psychology. They'll be able to correlate these theories with real-life instances and apply them. In other words, we'll be able to be true professionals in and of themselves based on the background that they've received while in this program. So what's involved? This is a 40-hour master's degree that includes 13 3-credit courses and 1 colloquium credit. The colloquium is a class that meets once a month the entire time you're there. You take it as a 1-credit class the first term, but you'll attend the entire 2 years, 1 Wednesday night a month, where we've been in speakers. We have the whole department together to discuss issues and basically enhance the whole overall process through that. Of the 13 courses you take, 11 of those are core classes that match up with the guidelines for AASP, and the other 6 gives you 2 elective courses that you can enhance the program overall with. So these are your required courses, and if you read through that list, you'll see that it covers almost all the areas that we talked about in the PLOs, from learning the research methods to the ethics courses to cognitive and affective domains of performance to the physiological aspects of performance. We can go on to the next slide. So this is a slide that just matches up those knowledge areas we just talked about with which of the courses from that list meet those requirements. We are not officially associated with AASP or with the Certified Mental Performance Consultant program, but the program was designed specifically to meet their published guidelines on what they require. In these knowledge areas, they have the 8 different areas, and they specify what students are expected to learn in that, and the courses you see on the right side are designed specifically to meet those requirements. All except KA2 have 1 class required. KA2 does require 3 different classes to meet the sports psychology aspects of it. The other thing I should point out is that completing the course doesn't by itself make you a certified mental performance consultant. There are also mentorship hours that are required. There's also an exam required, and that's all done through AASP rather than this program. This program will give you all of the didactic material that you'll need in order to qualify for the application to AASP for the Certified Mental Performance Consultant. We can go ahead. There are a number of elective courses that you can take within the department, including hypnosis or biofeedback, stress management. Some students will choose to do an independent study if they have an area that particularly they want. And other courses may be workable with permission of the chair, so that you can, to some extent, tailor make a little bit of how you want to finish up the program with that elective course. Students coming in will have a program plan. This one would be starting in the middle. If you're beginning in the spring, you would start with the courses, and each one of these courses will look familiar to you because they're matched on the core electives and those required for the knowledge areas for the AASP. These tend to be flexible. There are terms when you may want to take an extra course or take one less course, and that will shift things, but this is set up so that we know these courses are offered in these terms. So wherever you start, you would work your way around the circle. You see the electives that we've got set up are both in this summer term. And we can move on. Career outcomes. Graduates from the Masters in Sports Performance Psychology will be able to garner jobs as coaches, consultants, trainers, educators in sports and performing arts. Knowledge and skills in this degree program are also in demand in military settings. One of our instructors works primarily in the military base, particularly in the area of human performance. And this is the type of degree, he says, it's wanted because within the military, peak performance is a huge issue, and trainers and people that are designed to help in that area are in demand. And just a quick sample of some of the courses: optimal functioning in sports and performing arts environment, looking at elite performers across disciplines have different needs psychologically. This course, goes into depth into what other types of things are needed if you're going to help someone reach that elite level in terms of peak performance. Next course is Foundations of Sports and Performing Arts Physiology. So again, this course is a little different in that we do include the physiology of performance as well as the psychology of performance. So that's where you will be taking a course in biofeedback to be able to measure exactly what's going on physiologically, whether we're measuring muscles or respirations or heart rate, to have the science behind it so that you're able to help individual clients or groups, work specifically on it. So this course will go through, some of the aspects of the physiology that are important in peak performance. And the psychological applications, again, you notice that there were multiple courses required in this to look at the psychology as well as the psychophysiology. So looking at what are the different psychological factors in optimal performance and how do we help individuals overcome obstacles and to be at least the best that they can be. And we get to the admissions requirements. It's an online application. We have some people from admissions here that can talk a little bit more about this, but you do need to have a bachelor's degree from an accredited college or university. You need to submit your transcripts, a personal statement, a resume or CV, and then there's an interview with the chair of the program. We also are anticipating that people will have a 3-point average or a good explanation as to why they don't have a 3-point average. We can make some exceptions because there are a number of people who did not apply themselves completely in their undergraduate programs, but maybe a little bit more motivated in their studies at this point. So, and that brings us to the highlight of tonight's program. And we've asked one of our Saybrook students to do a live demonstration. At the time we arranged this, I didn't realize that she would be in France at the time of the interview, but Phoebe, would you like to start off a little bit with an explanation of what you're going to demonstrate?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So my degree is in applied psychophysiology. I'm there for the Ph.D. program. My background, I've been in fitness for 37 years. And I'm also a naturopath. I'm a certified nutritional coach as well. And I have a certification in quantum nutrition. So I take all of that for optimal performance. And I am entering into my dissertation phase, which is focusing in respiration and how that can affect or how that affects performance. So I'm demonstrating for you today one of the tools that we use, and I'll just jump into my presentation to give you some context. So when you are looking at optimal performance, you want to get a perspective about the what it is exactly that you're doing. And so I'm just going to jump in here. Okay. So the perspective, when we're looking at perspective, we're looking, whether it's a team or whether it's an individual. Aidan Moran is a sports psychologist, and he said sports are played by the body and won by the mind, or won in the mind. And that demonstrates right there. There are two, there are different theories when it comes to sports psychology. Is it in the mind or is it in the body? And so you have on one end the educational, the other end you have the clinical. I'll be focusing more on the clinical side. That's what the demonstration is. And when we look at it, when we're looking at clinical, we're looking again, is it more psychological or is it physiological? And when we look at physiological, we're looking at cognitive, behavioral, we're looking at mental toughness, anxiety and arousal. When we're looking at physiological, we're looking more of the how the physiology interacts and influences your psychology. So things like your heart rate, your temperature, respiration, blood pressure, etc. When we are looking at the tools as it relates to optimal performance, the tools of the trade can fall into two categories, whether it's assessment. So some of you may be already familiar, if you are a psychologist, with some of those tools as far as testing, different inventories, paper tests, that sort of thing. But there are other tools of the trade. One of them I will be showing you today as an assessment tool. And then you also have the biofeedback tools that are giving you real-time information on what is happening physiologically. And as you're working with a client, how they can control that, right? Because they are now aware of what is happening in their body. Some of those tools would include a heart rate or a respiratory monitor. So that's around the monitoring breathing and breath rate at the chest level. You can also have one in the abdominal area. The other could be temperature. So looking at the temperature, what is happening when they are under stress, if the temperature is going up or if it's going down, that gives us a lot of information about what is happening with the body. And then also, this is measuring both temperature and what we call skin conductance. So these are just some of the tools. There are other tools, and we'll get to the fun stuff, which is what I like to do with the assessment tool. So I'm going to stop my presentation briefly, and I will have my helpful assistant here. So I will be demonstrating the VO2 Max metabolic assessment tool. And you basically have a mask, and you have a sensor, or you have the measuring tool, and that will be mounted in here. So I have it in here already mounted. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on Rebecca here. So she'll put that on. Okay. A little bit. Oh, it's, hold on a second. Let's switch this. Oh, there you go. Do it this way. Make sure it's not upside down. And you're going to attach it. And the great thing about this device in particular, not that we are promoting one device over another, but with a VO2 Max in particular, you'll be able to use this with runners, cyclists, anyone on land. So you won't be able to use it in the water. But when you're looking at performance, they don't have to be connected to the computer. Everything will go into the actual pack itself. We then have a mask, and what we're doing is we're measuring, I'll show you the results, but we're going to measure what is happening with the way the body uses oxygen. And they call it metabolic testing because we're looking at how the body is efficiently using oxygen and what it's doing with the CO2 and what those percentages are. So she's going to go ahead and put this mask on. So I'll have you put that over your head. Okay. And I'm not going to have her run or anything, but this just gives you a demonstration of how easy it is to set up. Once she has that on, we're going to attach the single-use filter. So that's going to go on there. I'm just going to have you look a little bit. Yeah. Over here. And then we're going to attach the reader or the sensor. And that's what this is. This picks up the difference of what is happening with oxygen and the CO2. And then I would attach it in the back. Okay, so if you can turn around really quickly and so that they can see the back. So she's not connected to anything other than the sensors in the pack. And basically, go ahead and sit down. She can just go ahead and run or do whatever activity. We capture all the data and then we download it later onto the computer or the cloud, and we'll do an assessment. Okay. And so this entire time, there's no air coming in and out of the mask other than going through the filter as well as going through the sensor. And so between that, we can measure what is happening with the efficiency of how the body is using oxygen and CO2. Okay. So we'll pretend that she's done with all of, she's done with all the testing, but typically we can test at rest and we would test during activity. And that could be, again, a sport. That could be running on a treadmill. If any of you are familiar with stress testing, you can do that both on a, yes, we take this off. All right. There we go. Okay, easy peasy. So we can do a very similar to a stress test. If you've ever had that at a hospital, they're testing what's going on with your heart. And then also we can test that on a bicycle. So it doesn't matter what level of activity the person is at. You can test someone that is sedentary and you can test a high performance athlete. So it's great for all ages when it comes to the testing. So the fun part is the information that we get from this device and what you can use and what you can use that to apply based on what goals you have for the client. So as we go into the information, we are looking at metabolic testing again, or VO2 max. So if you're in sports, you're already familiar with this type of testing. So here's a picture, for example, of a heavy, someone doing weightlifting. So powerlifting, we can see again, what is happening with energy. The testing primarily is going to be physiological. So we're looking at physiologically what is happening. And depending on how you apply the test, you can match that up with what is happening psychologically. So you can use this in a test or scrimmage, let's say, a test run before they go into competition. Obviously, you would not be using this in competition, but you can see what is happening to the body as it relates to their performance. And when we look at testing, one of the things that we're looking at is oxygen, we're looking at energy, and we're looking, again, big picture, what is happening overall with that person. So when we're looking at oxygen, and I'm not going to go into the weeds because we can dig in deep with a lot of this information. But for example, we're looking here at rest. So this is resting metabolic rate. So at rest, what is happening when your client is just at rest, when they're breathing? Are they breathing efficiently? We can right away see if there is anything physiologically not working properly. For some people, for example, they may be hyperventilating and they have a higher amount of CO2 than they do oxygen at rest. And that may be one thing that you would address. This is at rest and this is at work. So again, this can give us information when the person is exercising or doing their sport or activity. And this can be playing the violin. Oh no, yeah, playing the violin because they don't have to breathe, drums or anything like that. Not just sports, but because we're doing sports, I'm focusing on sports. When this person is doing the activity, again, what is happening in the ratio of oxygen to carbon dioxide? Are we looking, is the body functioning optimally? If not, then we can dig a little bit deeper. So that's just the oxygen aspect of it. And again, we can dig even further into that. When we're looking at energy, we can also look, for example, at how the body is metabolizing energy or food that they eat. So this person at rest is very efficient. The red line represents fat. So they're burning more fat at rest than they are carbohydrates. Who doesn't want to do that? I think anyone that wants to lose weight wants to lose fat while they're not doing anything. So this person's metabolism is actually functioning very well. When they are exercising, what is also happening? And this gives us a lot of information depending on what type of sport, where they're at in performance, what is happening at a certain time. So down here at the bottom, on the y-axis, or the x-axis, you'll see this is how many seconds. So how many seconds into the activity are they using fat or switching over into carbohydrates? And is that ideal? Are we able to push that out? So when we're looking at optimal performance, whether it's a rower, for example, now we're talking about different energy systems. When do you want that anaerobic phase to kick in, or when the body's primarily looking at carbohydrates? How can we push that out? Psychologically, there could be also a tie. So we want to look at all those things together. So that is the energy. And then big picture, you can take a look at it all at once. So this is demonstrating as the heart rate, so this is at rest, this first one that I'm showing you here. So at rest, what is happening as it relates to fat being burned, carbohydrates being burned, how much energy is being expended, and the way that the software works, you can throw in any other metric that you want to look at. How are they using oxygen and carbon dioxide? And then this is while performing and exercising. This person is actually very optimal in the way that they perform. Their heart rate is gradually going up. And as it gradually goes up, the energy systems are also moving in that right direction. So there's a lot that can be told about what's happening in the physiology. And then when you pair that up with other assessments psychologically, or you're finding out some frustrations that they may have as it relates to performance, you can now put those together and and come up with a hypothesis on why that's happening, and then also how you are going to address it. So the application, real life application, it's not just psychology, it's not just physiology. There's an interplay between both. And you can have a simple, let me start with this report here, a simple report that can show you these basic things that are happening physiologically with the body: cardiovascular, breathing, respiratory capacity, the recovery of the systems, fat burning efficiency, all of that. Those are the pieces of information that you can get just from this one test or this one assessment. This is the overview of everything that you can get. And this report in particular will, for a layman, just let you know if you're very poor or excellent. And then the application of training. So if the issue is more physiologically based, this will give an idea, hey, you spend 50 to 70% of your time doing cardio when you actually need to be spending it on resistance training or interval training. So now you're getting specific ways in how to help improve performance from a physiological standpoint. And that is the demonstration for the VO2 Max, my favorite device.
Thank you very much, Phoebe. And now we move into my favorite part, which is getting rid of the presentation part and asking if there are questions from the people that joined us today. I see.
I'll just make a quick comment. I want to thank Phoebe for that wonderful demonstration. She started out with the VO2, which is probably the best indicator of overall cardiovascular fitness and endurance for an athlete. And it would be highest probably in a cross-country skier, especially Nordic cross-country skiers and marathon runners, but important for most athletes. So thank you, Phoebe. And then she showed us much more, but that's fascinating for me.
And a special thanks, because as I said, she's on vacation in Paris, in France right now. So she's going above and beyond by joining us today for this presentation.
So questions?
Any questions from our guests?
So I could ask, so yeah, really interested in the program. I know you said that it meets all of the academic requirements for the certified mental performance coach, and what's left would be the mentorship. Does this program do anything in terms of supporting, or does that have any way to help students get placed for that mentorship requirement?
Well, one of the problems we have is that because we're a national, we have students from all across the country. We don't have like a training site or something like that. We can certainly support, in terms of helping students find things in their area, but we don't have any mechanisms for that as far as a central training area or anything like that. So when push comes to shove, you actually want to do it in a local area because it's
right.
That has some value to your own community.
Right. Okay.
Here's some questions in the chat, Dr. Willmarth. So this one says, what would then be the approach when you're finding the physiological peak, but psychological challenge?
Well, that's,
something that be learned. Sorry.
Yeah, it's the balance that Phoebe was talking about, is that, it's not a one size fits all, that if you think of pieces of pie, in each individual, there will be a different part in terms of, in one, the psychological low frustration tolerance, things like that may be the issue you may need to work most on. For others, it may be much more of a physiological, learning how to train properly or things. The assumption that not everyone is equally, will end up ultimately having the equal ability, but everyone can match their own peak performance. Most of us really don't know what that is until we get involved on it, but that's the whole field of sports psychology, is helping people reach their best potential by not letting either one of those areas become a major obstacle.
I think that's it for the question.
It also varies from sport to sport. For example, Pierre Beauchamp is a Canadian sports trainer who uses psychophysiology, mind-body techniques, and working with speed skaters, he did a number of things, including a form of biofeedback called heart rate variability biofeedback, but he also trained reaction time, because if you're a speed skater, the start is so incredibly important. That was a key element in how he got so many gold medals with his team.
And if you watch the Olympics every year, they'll be talking about different training techniques. A lot of times they're talking about biofeedback. I remember the first one I saw was one of the shooting competitions where they trained people to essentially stop their heart at the point they pulled the trigger. And I can remember thinking to myself, I don't want to be that good. I like my heart beating. The next Olympics, I saw that they were instead using lots of padding to muffle the heart rate and things like that. But whether it's soccer teams or hockey teams or basketball teams, you'll find someone who used a sports psychologist, used psychophysiological things to get that little bit of edge, because at this level, a lot of people are really good. It's a matter of, can you get to that next level? I see Reagan has a question in the chat. Currently working on my master's in clinical mental health. Is there a crossover between programs? There's a crossover in that we can transfer some of if you're already in a master's program, we can transfer some of those credits into this program. This isn't set up as a certificate only because there are so many requirements needed for AASP. If some of the classes you're taking meet some of those knowledge areas, we can transfer in some classes. We may be able to waive some class if you've already had one. Ethics is the most common one that I see, where we waive the ethics course because they, or transfer it in because they took it at another program, which gives you one more elective to take. So you may want to, you do more with hypnosis, more with biofeedback, some of the other options on that. So both of those things are pretty standard, that we transfer in some credits. We also waive some requirements if you've already can demonstrate that you've had that material.
On the other hand, that's really a wonderful combination. If you can finish that mental health master's and qualify for licensure, and then also do this master's degree and get certified in with AASP, that's a wonderful combination. One of my friends is Leah Lagos in New York City. Now, she's a clinical psychologist. She has that license, but she also has training in sports physiology and sports psychology, and she combines the two. She'll treat clinical disorders in athletes, but she'll also do training, especially, right? She's published on several interventions with golfers, collegiate golfers.
I'd have a show of hands, but most of you don't have your cameras on to see, you know, how many are going to make up the very first cohort of this program at Saybrook. Hey, we have an answer there. So, and several answers here. So, yeah, look around. These would be your classmates in the very first cohort. So you'd be stuck in classes with each other for, you know, term after term. Although some of the courses may also include students from other programs who are also taking these for parts of their program too.
We wanted to mention too, for those of you that are going, we will be for our first time at the Association for Applied Sport Psychology Conference in Orlando. For anyone who will be there, you would be able to meet Phoebe in person. So Phoebe, I guess you have a long plane ride upcoming from somewhere in France to Lake Buena Vista.
Yes.
And then also Scott Walsh will be there, one of our admissions counselors who couldn't be on the call today. And then Tim Herzog will be there. So look for the Saybrook booth if you are attending. And just thank you so much to Phoebe and Phoebe, whomever was with you. We appreciate them participating.
Thank you, Rebecca.
In the demonstration.
I recognize Rebecca.
Thank you, Rebecca. And Dr. Willmarth, any closing thoughts? I don't think there are any other questions.
All right. Well, just hopefully we've shared our excitement about this program. I think it's something that is really valuable and needed, and we would love to have you join us for the first go around. And if so, if you go to the Saybrook website, there'll be a place where you can make an application, and Karen and her crowd will take good care of you, and eventually you'll get to me for that final interview. Thank you, everybody, for showing up today.
Best wishes to all the potential applicants.
Thank you.